Former congressman and candidate for governor Beto O'Rourke is facing backlash for creating a scene at Texas Governor Greg Abbott's press conference on the Robb Elementary School shooting yesterday. O'Rourke approached the stage mid-conference to scold the governor, only to be called a, quote, sick son of a bitch by Uvalde Mayor Dan McLaughlin and removed from the auditorium by security.
Pass the mic to Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Excuse me.
Sit down.
You're out of line and an embarrassment.
Sit down and don't play this.
Shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No, he needs to get his ass out of here. This isn't the place to talk this over.
This is totally predictable when you...
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please leave this auditorium. I can't believe you're a sick son of a would come to a deal like this to make a political issue.
Yesterday, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer blocked a bill by Senator Ron Johnson that would see more guns in school, saying there were officers at the school, the shooter got past them. We need real solutions. We will vote on gun legislation, starting with the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act. Johnson called the move political. Schumer made that statement just hours after saying Democratic leadership would wait to bring gun control measures to the floor until they had a chance to negotiate bipartisan legislation with a better chance of passing. Joining us now to weigh in is our rising panel. Olayemi Olurin is a public defender with Legal Aid NYC and a political commentator. Sam Geduldig is a partner at the CGCN Group. Welcome to you both.
Morning.
Thank you.
Okay, Olayemi, what do you make of this intervention here by Beto O'Rourke? Do you think optically he's trying to make a name for himself, perhaps for his political ambitions, and fundamentally, do you think it was effective?
I mean, I think he already had a name for himself. If he didn't, we wouldn't even be seeing it, because his feelings mirror the feelings of thousands, millions of Americans all around this country. There is a consistent effort to deflect when issues happen like this. They say, oh, don't make it political, or you're trying to make it political. But that's why we have politics. That's why we have government. We have a government in place to protect the people. And so when we see a continued failed effort to do that, incidents like this happening, it's not just one thing that we have this mass shooting where 21 people are dead, including 18 children. Less than a week ago, we had a shooting in Buffalo and 10 people were massacred in a grocery store. We've had over 284 shootings since Columbine. Yes, this is an issue. It is political because we need to talk about why our government is failing us in doing something. So whether it's effective, not effective, really has nothing to do with it for me. What it really comes down to, the core issue is this does need to be addressed. This is happening for a reason. And the Texas governor and the Texas politicians have a lot to do with why these guns are so easy to access and laws that they pass. So he needed to address it. And I asked, if not then, when's a better time?
Sam, my thinking, or here's what I think O'Rourke's thinking is, and you tell me if this matches your own political instincts. He's going to lose if things continue as they are, so why not do something kind of crazy? And if it backfires, well, you're going to lose anyway, and if it succeeds, maybe it helps out. What do you think?
I think as a politician, he's speaking to, a key constituency in the Democratic base. And I don't think it was effective. I think the reason Chuck Schumer is not bringing a bill to the floor is because he lacks 60 votes. And I don't think it's simply, the fact that Republicans won't participate. I think there's some red state Democrats that don't want to take this vote before an election. If you really want to accomplish something in the U.S. Senate, you need 60 votes. And generally, that means you've got to compromise. And I don't think what the Dems are bringing to the table is in any way a compromise. I think it becomes a shirts versus skins issue where, both teams kind of huddle up and try to defeat the other. It's a broader conversation than just guns at this point. Every Republican, you watch them on TV, they're all talking about mental health. They're talking about social media. They're talking about Hollywood. They're talking about video games. They're talking about pharmaceuticals. When Dems come to the table with, we just want this narrow piece of gun control, and we think that that's the answer to these problems, Republicans look at it as an attack on them, an attack on a key constituency of their own. And, you get what you pay for. Here we are 10 years later with no legislation, because I think both parties, depending on the circumstance, use this issue to, gain leverage in a political fight rather than seek compromise in Congress and pass a bill that might do something helpful.
Yeah, I do think some folks are going to look at what Beto O'Rourke has done, this interjection, and say, well, what is he really asking for if they don't have 60 votes and if Joe Biden has been so forceful about not wanting to get rid of the filibuster? And also, the conservative Democrats have also made murmurs that they don't think this is an issue that they would support getting rid of the filibuster for, and potentially might not even have 50 votes if they did. But I also am curious, Sam, if there is any specific legislation that Republicans are putting forward as they talk about things like mental health and these other factors that might very well be cofactors. I think that Democrats might see those suggestions as being made in good faith if there were, say, a bill that extended mental health care, perhaps under a Medicare for All style program, to all Americans. Is there anything specific there being offered?
I don't work on on any gun control issues or any mental health issues. I'm a lobbyist and represent different industries. So I'm not aware of them, but you could see a violence in Hollywood tax to help pay for some of these things. You got Robert De Niro out there, speaking about the Second Amendment. He hasn't made a movie without gun violence in it in decades. There's a million things Republicans could be for that I think would be productive in a broader argument. And I think if there was a real desire to bring the parties together and figure out a compromise, I think you could see some legislation come together on the Republican side and certainly from the Dems that addresses everything. The problem, I think, is, the media covers this as if they're like WWE referees. They're in on the partisan joke. They're amping the country up. They're getting bases whipped up for an election in 2022. And, we're in the same spot we've always been because our system is the way it is. And everyone is culpable, whether it's media coverage, whether it's the politicians digging in, to blame anyone for this tragedy is not fair. It's like blaming a politician for COVID. It happened. It's sad. There's so many things at factor here, and policies do matter. And I think, a lot of members of Congress and senators truly do want to get to the bottom of it. But unfortunately, we kind of devolve into this, team sport kind of thing. And we have a 50-50 Senate, and we're 5 months before an election. And, you're probably not going to find compromise in 5 months. And I'm certain that's why Chuck Schumer is not bringing a bill to the floor, because he doesn't have the votes.
Right. The problem is that there isn't tremendous political will to do something dramatic on this issue. Maybe there's political will in certain liberal enclaves. They've probably already done those, the kind of harsher or stricter gun control policies. There isn't appetite broadly among the public for really dramatic policy change. And I think nothing short of really dramatic policy change is going to make much of a difference in the gun violence death totals.
Well, Robbie, why do you say that? Sorry, go ahead, Ole.
I need us to stop pretending like there isn't a clear thing that's happening. We've had over 284 shootings. 31 people have been dead in the last 10 days. Let's talk about why that actually happened. In both shootings, two 18-year-olds were able to legally go and get two AR-15s. They were able to do that and use those guns. That we need to talk about that. It's not a political issue. It's not just that this is a football fight, between teams that we like. This is about the fact that the American people across the country are incensed at the fact that school shootings, mass shootings have become normal, that 31 people are dead. So I would disagree with all this conversation about whether or not this is blame and the media's role about it. The reason you're seeing outrage is because children were slaughtered days ago, and we have to talk about that. And and when we're talking about this, I think an important point is we have banned assault weapons before. This has happened, right? Automatic weapons have been banned, and we saw the shootings go down. And when the ban was lifted, we saw it triple. So there is an actual direct correlation to guns here. People aren't just talking about it as a means of political capital or because they want to attack the Republicans. No. They're talking about it because people are dead and they don't want to continue seeing this happen. People are scared of sending their children to school and they're not making it back. We have to talk about that. And we can't get bogged down in political theater, Beto O'Rourke, Democrats versus Republicans, the media, how you like it, and all these other things meant to deflect, entertainment, Hollywood, yada, yada, yada. None of those things have anything to do with the fact that two 18-year-olds legally got two AR-15s and shot people to death. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, Sam, to Olayemi's point, if it is true what Robbie is saying, that there isn't an appetite for a significant change, which I would push back against. We just recently read a poll that said most voters are enthusiastic about bigger policies as opposed to smaller ones. That poll wasn't specific about gun policy. It was just understanding that people are tired of a kind of incremental approach that seems to not get us anywhere. But assuming that what Robbie says is true and there isn't an appetite for doing something big in the face of a mass shooting at an elementary school, why is that the case in your opinion, Sam? And what do you make of Olayemi's point that there are things that we know are demonstrated to bring down levels of gun violence? Why isn't there strong outrage and enthusiasm and support among, I think, predominantly conservatives to do something, whether it's the mental health if they think it's that, or the gun restrictions that so many Democrats think and some evidence suggests will actually change outcomes here?
I don't think there's 50 votes in the Senate on the Democratic side. I think that, polling overwhelmingly shows that it's popular, but maybe not in states like Montana and West Virginia and Arizona and other key constituencies that Chuck Schumer needs on his side.
Well, do you think it might have something to do with the fact that for a long time now, and polls have borne this out, there is not a relationship between what the people in these various constituencies want, red or blue, and what Congress is willing to pass because of the influence of lobbying, not just from big gun manufacturers in the NRA, but from a whole host of groups?
I disagree. I think the voters in those states are not supportive of the measures that you guys would like them to take. And there's a reason why they're not voting for these things. And I think they, in their minds, I'm certain they think they're representing constituents in their states.
Making it somewhat harder for an 18-year-old to acquire an AR-15 is not going to put a dent in the gun death totals each year in this country at all.
It's not? So if an 18-year-old couldn't get an AR-15,
any statistical effect whatsoever, it's not.
Okay, well, if 2 18-year-olds couldn't get AR-15s, by my imagination, what I could just observe based on the last 10 days, there would at least be 31 people that wouldn't be dead.
Yeah, it is true that people have been posting.
We don't know that they wouldn't be. He was locked in a room with these kids for an hour. So we
Robbie,
don't know
you
at
said
all
that if
this would have been any different with any
difficult.
type of gun. Millions of more people than guns in the country.
Robbie, look at how many mass shootings have been used
99.9% of them killed with handguns.
Robbie, the thing is, most of these shootings are happening with AR-15.
No, that's not true.
If you go down the list,
look at the mass shootings. Look at the mass shootings, Robbie.
Are repeatedly. So do you think that there's any pause to be given about whether it's AR-15s or other kinds of guns that can shoot many rounds in a short period of time? That's the issue, right? That more damage can be done with a automatic or semi-automatic gun than can be done with a pistol or javelin or a knife or other kinds of things that just can't kill as many people in a shorter period of time. Robbie, do you think it should be the case that 18-year-olds, as happened in this case, can go on their 18th birthday to a store and purchase an AR-15?
I don't think it will make any difference, any statistical difference in how many people are killed by guns every year.
So why do you think that so often AR-15s are at issue in these cases?
It's not true that they're so often an issue.
That
is true.
In the handful of mass school shootings that have, I'm talking about this in my radar today, so we should save that discussion for that. But the handful of mass school shootings that have occurred, yes, AR-15s have played a role, but most people are killed in homicides or other episodes that do not involve AR-15s.
And we should talk about how to address those kinds of killings. But in a week where we just had an AR-15 kill 10 people in a supermarket and an AR-15 just kill, a whole classroom full of elementary school students and their teachers, why the deflection from talking about how to stop incidents like this that have really gripped the public imagination?
I said that we have no evidence that that's going to help. Go ahead and do it, but it's not going to solve the gun violence problem. We don't even know it would solve the issue in these cases.
Olayemi?
But it did. We've tried it before. We did it in the 90s. We did ban automatic weapons, and we did see the shootings go down. And when we lifted the ban, it went up 3 times. So how are we going to say that it would have no bearing? If we're seeing continuously, since Columbine in 1999, we've had over 200 of these kinds of shootings, and they're using automatic weapons.
We don't have 200 kinds of Columbine shootings, though. We have 13.
I'll pull it up, Robin.
And we can get into that in your radar. But I want to ask you, Sam, if, the unspoken elephant in the room here is that there is this implication that if we were to say raise the age at which someone could get one of these weapons to 25, the way that you have to be 25 to rent a car. The implication is that if we were to say it's not as easy for people to get their hands on a volume of bullets that can cause this level of destruction, or it's not easy for people to get their hands on the kind of guns that can shoot so many rounds per minute, that would be a attack on the Second Amendment that is constitutionally unsupported. Do you believe that the Second Amendment requires that 18-year-olds be able to buy a semi-automatic or automatic weapon on their 18th birthday?
What I believe is irrelevant. It's what 100 senators and 435 members of Congress believe. I do believe that people that support the Second Amendment have a First Amendment right to tell those members of Congress and those senators what they believe. And I think, part of the reason why nothing gets done is because it turns into what this segment just did, just kind of, shouting over one another and no compromise. So, until we get to a place where we can have a conversation about the whole problem with guns in America and these shootings, and it doesn't happen in other places, and there's got to be reasons for it, and I'm certainly no expert, we're simply not going to get anywhere. We got an election in 5 months. There's reasons why Chuck Schumer is not bringing a bill to the floor of the Senate. The reasons to me are obvious. He doesn't have the votes, and maybe he doesn't even have his whole team on board. Beto O'Rourke did what he did. I think he was politicizing the issue personally, and I think that hurts a broader effort to come together and work on things. But I do think that every single constituent has the right to voice their opinion to their members of Congress, no matter what state they're in. And, in New York and the Northeast, they feel strongly one way. Out West, in the South, they feel another way. And, until both parties recognize that there is strong feelings about these issues and that those voices deserve to be heard, we're just going to continue to shout at each other, and that doesn't accomplish anything.
Sam, with all due respect, there is ample proof that there is a disjunction between what people want and what the representatives want. A lot of the common sense gun control policies that are being discussed are ones with majority report. And I'm not sure what the First Amendment implications are here for you, but what is true is that the lobbying money that is being funneled into Congress is having a huge effect on the democratic process and for voters to have the ability to speak by actually voting. Their votes are being usurped by the fact that Congress members are paying more attention to the money in their coffers. I want to give you the last word, Olay.
I think no one is disputing that this is an issue where people feel strongly on one side, right? No one is disputing that you have a Second Amendment right. No one is disputing that people feel passionately about their guns. But what is fact is that these shootings continue to happen, that people are dying, and that there is no there's nothing in the Second Amendment that says that you can't regulate the Second Amendment at all, that you need to have easy, unfettered access to every kind of weapon that you want. That's not what it says. That's not the issue. And no one is trying to take away the guns or take away your Second Amendment right. What we are saying is that we keep seeing these shootings happen. There are armed police officers at the scenes, and yet these shootings continue to happen because people have these easy access to automatic weapons, and we're tired of seeing it happen. So we need to put in place these common sense measures to prevent people from having access to these weapons and killing more people.
Yeah, I'm not arguing the Second Amendment, by the way. I just don't have a lot of faith that those policies would make as much difference, but I'm glad we had that debate on the show today. Thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we'll be back with more Rising right after this.